Hey, how's it going? It's your boy Challenger Coach Moriarty here to bring you another video where I'm going to teach you how to play a new up-and-coming monkey pick, meta pick, and that is the reworked Wukong, although I will be focusing on him mostly as a top laner. There also happens to be a little bit of controversy over his rework and how strong it is and, what direction Riot took with it, and so I'll be looking to dish out some facts on his current power level, so let's get right into it. First thing you'll need to know about the current strength of Wukong is, of course, how well he was doing before his rework. Wukong before his rework was a bruiser hybrid assassin champion that pretty much only looked to EQR one-shot people as kind of a gimmick, and he was pretty unsatisfying to play. Now, obviously, that is subjective, and before Wukong maintained me for that comment, I'm gonna back this up by saying his play rate in the top lane was only 0.4%, and so that means, most people hated playing him, and he only had around a 50% win rate. After that, during his many rework iterations on the PBE, with Riot trying to force him into a more bruiser role rather than his assassin role, many avid Wukong players were worried about his lower burst damage, spawning the ever so popular 200 years of experience meme. But the second that Wukong rework hit the live servers, the Wukong subreddit as well as popular Wukong mains still complained he was too weak and needed some buffs, while most of the player base, including Riot, said otherwise, and in fact Riot decided to hotfix nerf him almost instantly. But this isn't some kind of tabloid or gossip channel, so let's go into the stats on the new Wukong and why the difference of opinion even exists. Across every single bracket of play, you mean the high elo, the mid elo, the low elo, doesn't really matter, Wukong's win rate is 55% or more with around a 9% play rate and about a 30% ban rate, and that just keeps increasing. These monstrous level stats actually put him in contention for essentially the best top laner in the game, and he can be considered one of the strongest champions in the entire game, period, which is, well within Riot's normal hotfix parameters. Now, of course, these numbers all come in from his pre-hotfix Wukong state, but even going through them with the slight decrease to his tankiness and the slight damage decrease on his clone, he's still gonna be an S tier champion, and I'm saying this because, Wukong's Q damage had a bug where it didn't even deal bonus damage to towers, and his W clone didn't even deal damage to champions or towers in half the cases anyways. It is also true though that when reworks or new champions are released, they have inflated initial win rates due to people learning them faster than people who learn how to play against them, and that's only natural because the person playing the champion actually reads the patch notes and runs into the champion more often because, they're playing them. At least compared to the people who are going WTF, why did Wukong just ult twice? Did his rework go through? I don't even know, I can't really open up the internet to check the patch notes. To sympathize a little bit with the Wukong mains, he does actually lack damage, but he only lacks burst damage compared to his prior version. That doesn't mean that he lacks damage overall, it's because he's almost exclusively a bruiser and he has more sustained damage now. We've just gone over Wukong's stats, so let's go over the difference between his old and new version so Wukong players and those dumb enough not to ban him can learn what he actually does differently now. For his passive, I doubt anyone knew or cared what his old one did, but the new one, the main thing you want to understand is it no longer gets him MR, and he gets a bunch of armor and health regen while actually fighting people, meaning if you're a Syndra and you combo him, he will likely die, but then again, I think most champions will. But if you get into an extended fight with him as an AD champion, you're probably gonna lose. As for his Q, it's pretty much the same thing, although it does have a nice bonus on getting lowered CD for every time Wukong or his clone hits something, and it also scales with attack speed. The W now has a small dash that can't go over walls, and the clone mimics abilities, and yes, it does do damage as well, and it can still ult people. His E is the exact same, except it doesn't scale with AD anymore, it scales with AP, which is kind of a big deal. And the most important change is his ultimate being able to be cast twice, and yes, the second activation will still knock people up, and it's gonna give you the ability to juggle people like you're in a Dragon Ball Z 2D fighting game. But Adam, these changes seem fine and all, but what does this mean for Wukong overall? Why do some people still think he sucks? Well, that's because Wukong is a goddamn bruiser now, he's not an assassin. Literally, all these changes make it very clear that it's better for him to be a bruiser, and he's simply bad at being an assassin now because of his E not scaling with AD anymore. So yeah, Assassin Wukong sucks, Bruiser Wukong is a broken monkey champion. With Wukong's new established playstyle, let's go over how to properly build him as well as some possible item setups, as I'm not going to pretend his optimal build has been found out yet over the last couple of days, but I do have some educated guesses for you. First up, his starting items are kinda all over the place style-wise, with Longsword, Refillable Potion, Doran's Blade, and Doran's Shield all being used, but the most common is still Corrupting Potion, which I'm going to condone. For your first back, it's going to be pretty useful to grab a Tiamat for wave clear early on, and since he's a bruiser champion now, we can actually just look to mimic similar champions for crafting his build. For your first core item, Trinity Force or Black Cleaver is probably the immortal debate between bruisers, but stat-wise, this version of Wukong is going to do better with Trinity Force as the added attack speed is very useful for the way his Q works now with the reduced CD and the attack speed scaling. Next up for your second item, there's not a lot of debate over it. It's very commonly Death's Dance because the new Wukong excels at extended fights, and the new Death's Dance is just that good at doing that. Third item is where it gets a little bit trickier for me, and his two options are really to upgrade his Tiamat item into either Titanic or Ravenous Hydra, as they are both viable in terms of stat. The Ravenous is better when games are shorter, and the Titanic is better in terms of scaling, and so the more consistent option for me will be building Titanic Hydra. Finish off your build after that, it's mostly a combination of normal bruiser item options, although after my research I found that Starrock's Gauge, DA, Spirit Visage, or Mortal Reminder are the go-to options, as he doesn't really need any dedicated armor tank items due to his passive. These combination of items seem to be the best and the most stable initial build for Wukong, but I have seen people testing out things like Bork, Wit's End, Maw, and Dustblade on him, but I'd still recommend the build that I show above. For his runes, the primary tree is so easy a monkey could choose it honestly, and all you're gonna do is he's a bruiser, and so you're gonna take Conqueror. After that, it's Triumph, then Legend Alacrity, as once again he does well with attack speed, although Legend Tenacity can be used in certain matchups as well. As for Coup de Grace versus Last Stand, generally speaking, unless you have amazing synergy with Coup de Grace and have a play pattern where Last Stand doesn't work, then especially on bruisers, Last Stand will give you more damage 9 out of 9 games. For his secondary runes, it's a bit trickier as he currently has 3 options. The regular, kind of boring Resolve secondary, Bone Plating, Demolish, Overgrowth, all that stuff. Then you can go Inspiration for Biscuit's Time War Tonic for better all-in during the laning phase, or you can go Domination for Sudden Impact Ravenous Hunter. Stat-wise in order, it's actually Domination performing the best, then Inspiration, then of course Resolve. But they're all somewhat close, but I personally still prefer the Domination secondary. For Wukong's level sequence, some people have swapped to actually skilling Q and then E in terms of max order, but in terms of the stats, maxing E into Q is still way better, so please do that. In terms of power spikes, Wukong's, they didn't really change that much, although his early trades are less burst oriented and they're more worth it in terms of sustained damage. Level 2 and level 3 are solid to all in for Wukong, along with of course his level 6, and then after that a level 9 when his mobility is maxed out with his E is pretty strong too, and then follow that up with standard level 11, level 16 power spikes. For items, we got Trinity Force will be his biggest power spike, and then followed by Death's Dance. After that it's pretty meh, kinda like every other bruiser, doesn't really matter that much. Unlike the old version of Wukong, this version is actually way more fluid in how he combos and engages, so rather than list every single possibility, I'm gonna do and just show you his bread and butter combo, as well as tell you some interesting interactions in his kit that'll help you decide how to fight with him. His standard all-in combo will be E auto attack W, then auto attack Q, then R, then auto attack Q, then R again, and then auto attack Q again. Note this isn't the highest DPS combo he can do, but it'll be the one you'll find yourself mostly using throughout the game. Let's go over some useful interactions with the reworked Wukong. So when you use your Q on Wukong and your clone's out, your clone's obviously going to use Q, but it'll still use Q even if you're not in range to actually use it yourself. As long as the clone is in range, it'll actually still use it. And this is true if you just have Q activated too. Similarly, the clone will actually gain your E attack speed, although it's not going to dash when you use your E. But one of the cool things about it is, as long as you have the actual E attack speed buff, even if you use something like E and then W, the clone is still going to get that extra bonus attack speed. Another cool thing about the Wukong clone is it'll actually automatically target the last person you hit. But please remember, the new Wukong actually relies a lot on his clone damage, and so you actually want to use it for damage and not always mobility, so please keep this in mind. Lastly, Wukong's ultimate damage ticks actually count towards resetting Wukong's QCD, which is something you should always keep in mind, as not using Q before your ult is missing out on a lot of potential damage, as Q is pretty much going to be off cooldown whenever you finish ulting, which is why the combo above actually even works. That's why the auto QR into auto QR combo even works to begin with. In this section, I'm going to lay out how to play the laning phase with the reworked Wukong. Step number 1, this version still has good level 1 trading with E, so don't be afraid to chip the enemy down with E auto trades, and do remember that your passive is really strong in extended fights versus AD damage. Step number 2, at level 2 and 3, remember that your clone is more of an offensive trading tool now, so avoid using W and then E, and make sure to get those E auto W auto Q trades in early on. In terms of play pattern, it's very similar to laning as Jax. Your sustained damage is really good, and whenever you're W up, you want to look for a trade to chip the enemy down. Step number 3, between levels 3 and 5, you're either trying to set yourself up for a level 6 all-in by chipping your opponent down and controlling the wave so it's on your side by the time time you hit level 6, or if a kill is impossible, you look to perfect CS so you can get that Trinity Force even faster. Step number 4, oh man, once you do hit level 6, this is the dream. If the enemy is ever on your side of the lane, even at full HP, you can consistently use your standard all-in combo to kill them, as most people will be caught off guard by your double ult damage, and then also your Q being up as often for that sustained damage. This is of course obviously still matchup dependent, but know that you will win most level 6 all-ins extremely often. Step number 5, that's kind of it for Wukong laning. If your ult is up, you have kill potential, and you have really strong gank assist. With it down, well, you're kind of not that scary, you don't really do much, so just keep that in mind. Also, remember that Wukong actually excels at longer trades now, not burst situations, alright? So when you see chances to fight people on your side of the lane, it's a lot better as you have more room to chase them down. Next up, let's go over step by step on how to teamfight on the new Wukong. In terms of mindset, you are very similar to other bruiser champions like Jax, Aurelia, or Renekton. You look to stack up your passives or conquer and then dive the backline. When you see a good chance, you also set up for flanks. Remember, you don't have the damage to fully burst down carries instantly, unlike, Renekton, so fights need to be played a little bit slower. Step number 1, you want to look for a flank on a teamfight whenever possible, and then enter the teamfight with your standard all-in combo. After you use your first ult, you need to decide quickly whether you want to fully commit to the fight with your second ultimate charge to finish off the backline, or you can actually just spin away and knock up the front line and peel for a bit. After that, you just kind of wait for your E or W to come off CD and then re-engage on the enemy backline with your second ultimate. This is the ideal play pattern for Wukong in teamfights. Step number 3, if you weren't able to get a flank, you've probably failed your city and your team, and so you'll need to hit the front line for a bit to stack up your passive and conquer it, then dive the backline once they're in range to do damage. If they don't come into your E range, it's okay, that kind of means they aren't doing that much damage, and so you can just continue to hit the front line. Step number 4, it's pretty much the same play pattern as before. Once you do actually reach the backline, do your standard all-in combo, then choose to either spin back to the front line and re-engage for your second ultimate, or stay there for the second knockup if you think you're going to get the kill. Step number 5, avoid using your W to engage unless you're certain the engage is just so juicy that the extra damage you're going to miss out on isn't needed. Like most of my guide videos, I'm going to do a TLDR section, so let's go into it. Wukong's rework was probably because the assassin playstyle wasn't healthy for the game, and so Riot's trying to push him into a bruiser playstyle. Wukong is now actually a bruiser, so he does less burst damage now in favor of more sustained damage, and this is somehow very hard to understand. Wukong, currently pre-hotfix, is the strongest top laner in the game with a 55% win rate, a 9% play rate across all skill levels. Wukong's passive makes him tankier over extended trades versus AD damage. Wukong's Q scales with attack speed and gets its CD reduced by abilities or basic attacks. His W clone now does damage and has a small dash that doesn't go over walls. E is the same ability but has AP scaling instead of AD, which kinda kills his lethality style. R can be used twice. Item build is Tiamat, Trinity Force, DD, Titanic, then Sterox, then GA. Runes are Conqueror, Domination. You're gonna want to max E, then Q, then W. Power spikes are level 2, 3, 6, 9, 11, 16. Your item spikes are Trinity Force and Death Dance. Your bread and butter all-in combo will be shown on the screen for you because I don't want to say all of it. Laning phase, trade early on. You're gonna look for kills at level 2 and level 3 as your extended trades are pretty good. Remember your clone is for damage too, not just mobility, and make sure to all-in at 6. He has really high kill potential at that level. For teamfights, you're going to use your bread and butter all-in combo to engage, hopefully from a flank, and then after your first ultimate, you decide if you want to spin to the front line, knock them up too, and then peel, then re-engage with your second ultimate, or if you want to use your second ultimate to knock the enemy backline up again to go for the all-in kill. That's it for our video highlighting the reworked Wukong. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any suggestions for a champion or player to be featured on the next one, let me know in the comment section below. As always, I'm the Napoleon of League of Legends, Moriarty, and be sure to check out Mobalytics.gg to see your own stats, or check out our other videos on this channel, and hopefully the solo queue gods will be with you.